point of presentation. Yeah. You also have a presentation, right? Yes. I think you have to direct it towards there then. Yeah. Okay, it's my great pleasure to introduce another panel dedicated to women's stories. Also in this panel, we are short of one presentation, so we have two presentations by Marija and Gideon in this panel. I'll introduce each speaker after one another, and we'll start according to the program with Marija Ratkovic. Marija Ratkovic is a PhD candidate in the theory of dramatic arts, media, and culture at the Faculty of Dramatic Arts at the University of Arts here in Belgrade. And she's a researcher, theorist, and writer with an interdisciplinary background in humanities, sciences, and arts. And her thesis, The Politics of the Holocaust Representation on Film, 2000 to the 2002, continues her extensive research on genocide representations in the arts and media. Ratkovic has worked with the collectives Four Faces of Omaska, Monument Group, Culture of Memory, Red Mind, Forensic Architecture. Her work focuses on bioethics, biopolitics, and the issues of sexuality, gender, and class. She has published her work on the eroticism in Frida Filipović's work, exploring the intersection of literature, film, and the representation of women's Holocaust trauma. The published author of two novels, Contrast and Ita Verlag, and several award-winning stories. And now we are looking forward to her presentation titled Zeugin aus der Hölle, and Gorke, Trave by Frida Filipović, Écriture, Féminine as a strategy for speaking the unspeakable.
Thank you. I think that it should be. Well, thank you. Good afternoon. I hope you're feeling well and not too fatigued. My presentation explores the discursive landscape of Gorke, Trave. But also I choose to use Zeugin aus der Hölle because it possessed that gender definition of witness, which is lost both in Serbian and English. We were exploring magnum opus of Frida Filipović, Yugoslav Jewish author, translator, and screenwriter, to the lens of Écriture Féminine, which she employs as a strategy of speaking the unspeakable. This study examines how Filipović cross-media storytelling reshapes Holocaust representation, particularly by foregrounding the gender body and politics of women's speech and post-Holocaust silence. I will focus on how Filipović hybrid oeuvre, spanning prose, film, and later novelization, reveals long-term survival writing as a feminist act of resistance. I will coordinate, yes. Frida Filipović, born as Frida Greif, was Yugoslav author and translator. She was born and raised in Sarajevo, and she moved to Belgrade in 1931 as a student of philology, especially Romanistics. During her studies, she contributed stories to numerous magazines, including Politika and Žena danas, Woman of Today. She published her first book in 1937 with the publishing house Getzacon. The book was a short story anthology titled Stories About Women. Before the war, she was politically active in circles close to Belgrade surrealists, including Marko and Ševa Ristić. She married a Serbian, Dr. Vanđel Tasić, but their marriage did not survive anti-Semitic regulations. She refused to wear a yellow ribbon, so she joined the resistance movement led by her colleagues from the magazine Žena danas. a woman of today. From 42 to October 44, she was member of People's Liberation Front in Yugoslavia, serving on the board of Anti-Fascist Council of National Liberation. After the war, she adapted her unpublished novel Gorke trave into a screenplay for the film directed by Žika Mitrović, her husband at the time. In 2000, she published a novel of the same time. Well, sorry. Novel of the same name with Narodna knjiga, which was shortlisted for the NIN Award, the highest literary accolade in Serbia. She passed away in Belgrade in 2002 at the age of 89. Next. We could now see the beginning of the Gorke trave film, which is also known as Witness from Hell. It's present in the many archives of Holocaust films. So, no, just start. Milan, could you start film? This vandalization of Jewish cemetery, which is the opening of the film, but also the ending of the film, which is also frequently overseen. But I think it's appropriate at the moment when we talk about the actuality of anti-Semitism around the world. Okay, we can continue. Literary work. This coordination is killing me. Okay. Next slide. Her pre-war political involvement in literature continued after the Second World War. Two new story collections, Do danas, until today, from 56, and then Razilaženja, Divergences, in 73. The unfinished novel was first presented to the public in form of a film script, Gorke trave, Witness Out of Hell, co-produced with West Germany in 1966. Then she had that long pause from 1966 to 2001 when she published Gorke trave as novel. The study comprises three different semiotic texts. The first text is 66 film Gorke trave by Žika Mitrović, one of the earliest West German Holocaust films produced by Arthur Brauner. And the film followed the unsuccessful attempts of a German state prosecutor and a Yugoslav journalist to persuade ex-camp inmate Lea Weiss, who had been forced into prostitution in Auschwitz and later became victim of medical experiments, to testify at the Nazi trial in Germany. Haunted by memories and current death threats from influential Nazi sympathizers of the time, Lea is reluctant to appear. Two men's inability to understand her trauma, coupled with her growing fears, ultimately leads to her death by suicide. Now we have an insert. film also points out actuality of anti-Semitism, their threats, and so on during the Frankfurt trials for Auschwitz. This should be a present-day Berlin.
A kako si našla toga tvog Bjankija?
Bjanki, bila sam dugo sama. Strah od ljudi, ponos. Da ja znam šta je to bilo. Bila sam željna neke nežnosti. A onda sam srela Bjanki. Verovatno te to čudi.
Razumem te. Potpuno. Poznaješ ga?
Da, on me nasledio. Ja sam tu dugo svirala klavir, pune 2 godine. Od 5 do 9. Dan.
Čudno je. Uprko svemu što si doživjela, nisi se mnogo izmenila.
Jes. Kako da?
Lea, sad mi se čini da bih mogao da napišem drugi deo knjige o tebi.
Boro, ni prvi deo nije potpun. Ja ti onda nisam sve rekla.
Na primjer?
Da sam živela s Bergerom.
A. Primorao te?
Naravno, mogao je da čini sa mnom što je hteo. To je bila jedina šansa da me ne ubiju kao zamorče. Da me ne spale. Činila sam što god je hteo. Da bi me odvratio od svedočenja, von Walder mi je predočio u kako bi sramnu situaciju upala pred sudom.
Kakvu sramnu situaciju, ne? Apsurd. Ti žrtva, ti da se stidiš. Nisi mu nasela, nadam se.
Ne, suviše sam ja iskusila i prepatila. Da bi bilo kome dugovala objašnjenje kako sam izvukla živu glavu. Drugo nešto me ne plaši. Neću izdržati to suočenje s prošlošću. Neću izdržati.
A kad bih zamolio Hopmana da se zadovolji samo tvojom pismenom izjavom, to bi bilo za dan, dva gotovo. Onda bi mogla da odeš nekud. Da se odmoriš.
Možda. Ali on neće pristati.
Prepusti to meni.
Ste li sigurni da Berger nije sam vršio ta ubrizgavanja?
Ne. Samo trenutak. Ne znam. Možda u početku dok je još eksperimentisao. Kad sam ja došla na red, to su radili njegovi asistenti.
Dobro, vi tvrdite da je on bio šef i da je sam eksperimentisao. Na osnovu čega ste to zaključili?
Ha, to su svi znali.
Pazite, Preuklema, mene ne zanima šta su drugi znali, već hoću da znam odakle vi to znate.
On mi se sam hvalio da je pronašao taj metod sterilizacije.
Vi dakle tvrdite da je SS-ovac, dr. Berger, o takvim stvarima govorio o vama, jednoj običnoj logorašici.
Da. To vam je čudno?
Ja znam da je među vama postojao, tako da kažem, neki bliži kontakt. On je voleo muziku i vi ste mu svirali. Ali ipak bili ste veoma mladi. A usto i sami žrtva njegovog metoda.
O, to mu posle nije smetalo. Treba li da budem preciznije? Da vas nešto upitam, doktore Hoffman.
Da, molim.
Neće li biti nezgodno da se na sudu pojavim kao ljubavnica doktora Bergera?
Molim te, Lea, nije baš pravi trenutak za ironiju.
U redu. Ali sud mora sve da čuje. Ako već svedočim, onda idem do kraja. Ili treba da kažem da smo ćaskali kraj klavira uz čaj? Noću mi se poveravao, razumete li? Bio je nervozan, slabo je spavao, voleo glasno da misli. Vi biste više voljeli da vaš svedok bude čista, nevina žrtva. Anđeo koji optužuje, anđeo pravde. Žao mi je, gospod. Ali taj vaš anđeo je prošao kroz pakao i ogaravio malo svoje krivce.
Lea, prestani.
Čekaj malo. Hoćete li sve da znate? Onda slušajte do kraja. Kad me se Berger zasitio, ustupio me nekakvom kolegi koji je također eksperimentisao. Bavio se nekim odmrzavanjem. Tebi sam pričala o tome. Vi znate o čemu je riječ.
Da, znam. Trebalo je za Luftwaffe ispitati kako da se spasu oboreni piloti kada ih smrtno izvuku iz Atlantika ili Severnog mora. Kako da ih ponovo ožive.
Činila sam sve što su od mene tražili. Inače bi me poslali na selekciju.
We could continue now, yes. We can now see the context and different. We can now see the context of creation of these films during the Frankfurt trials, and also this long space between razilaženja, divergences, and Gorke Trave novel. This research explores how women Holocaust experiences through transdisciplinary storytelling, analyzing the discursive field comprising Witness from Hell, Gorke Trave film, short story collection Divergences from 1973, and the novel Gorke Trave in 2001. Fascinating aspect is that decades later, Filipović returned to the same material to rewrite it, reversing the typical chronology of adaptation. There are only few examples of novelization of film in world history. So we can see Gorke Trave as an archaeological practice throughout Filipović's oeuvre. It presents new readings of her work, emancipatory in the present moment and radically avant-garde in any earlier context. The publication of Gorke Trave novel continuously developed over 30 years, from unsafe draft through the film script to the novel, represent a significant turning point in her work and precedent in film and literature. While working on multiple versions of the novel and the script, she was also translating contemporary theorists into Serbo-Croatian, which naturally influenced the new versions of Gorke Trave. My research traces narrative development across three phases: post-war reflection, then early cinematic testimony in 1960, especially dedicated to West German public, and late literary working in the early 2000, which is particularly important because it comes after the war and genocide in Bosnia, but also after the war in Kosovo, which she actually explored immediately after Second World War, along with Žika Mitrović during Avala filming on Kosovo. It analyzes a decade-long evolution of the text and its significance as a record of long-term survival writing. I'll although less known, Filipović's work emerged from the tradition of Yugoslav feminist engaged literature, which is explained in work of Žarka Svirčev. Writing about women bodily experiences was avant-garde practice present among left-wing feminist authors of interwar and post-war literature, including Mitra Mitrović, Milka Žicina, Nadežda Ilić-Sutunović, and Filipović herself. The politicization of female body involves questioning health and illness, pain and pleasure, age, fertility, sterilization, violence, and trauma. Filipović's approach is radically honest in its attention to bodily truths. She also employs auto-fiction, but also I would need to go a step back to see that Gorke Trave novel is comprised of the first part, which is novel Villa Hortensia, published originally in Divergence's anthology. Then part 2, which is Witness Out of Hell, adapted script of the film Witness Out of Hell, plus documentary materials from Frankfurt trials. And part 3 is epilogue, originally written in 2000, along with documentary parts from press of the time. So it is a pastiche. See. Within Écriture Féminine, the editing process itself can act as a stylistic marker of the genre. Women's writing is not inscrutable or mystical as often presented. The male gaze from the film, because I have to point here that Žika Mitrović is one of the most macho male gaze directors from Yugoslav history of film. In film, the male gaze equates virginity with innocence, where we could show that in the insert. But in film, all the prior sexual or erotic experience from the character Lea Weiss is erased, and Frida did that intervention to inscribe pre-war sexual encounters into the character of Sonja Hirsch, which is alternative to Lea Weiss. In contrast, she inscribes complex female characters, distinguishing between virginity as symbolism and innocence as a concept, a distinction crucial in Holocaust context. And we can see now parts from the novel which are dedicated to Unspeakable, and definitely unspeakable at the time when film started. Then we see premarital sexual experiences, cowardice of Gentile husband, then lesbian affection, and finally attraction to SS officer, prequel with Dr. Berger. And finish now. Why Filipović matter today? These are the themes she's covering, and I think that it is more than actual today. It is part of rewriting the culture of memory on the Holocaust, intervening into a body of memory. Both Filipović and her heroines, Lea Weiss and Sonja Hirsch, were despised as women, as intellectuals and free-spirited views, and finally as Jews. A distinctive aspect of this new knowledge redefines the significance of sexual behavior, sexual violence, and exploitation in the discursive field of Gorke Trave, first as a film script, then a film, and many years later, a novel. It's a tribute to unruly, defiant, and unconventional women who waited for the new millennium to tell their stories in their own terms. So I will stop here, so we can continue with that.
Yeah, thank you, Marija, for the very interesting presentation and also giving us an insight into the film material. I think that was very contributing so that we understand what you're talking about.
Yes, if
Yeah,
you're interested,
can
we
we,
could
turn
share a
on
link
the-
to the film if someone didn't see it.
And now it's my great honor to introduce Professor Gideon Greif, an Israeli historian, educator, and pedagogue. He is the chief historian and researcher at the Shem Olam Institute for Education, Documentation, and Research on Faith and the Holocaust. In Israel, and the chief historian and researcher at the Foundation for Holocaust Education projects in Miami, Florida, and a senior researcher and historian at the Ono Academic College in Israel. Professor Greif is considered one of the world-renowned historian experts on the history of the concentration and extermination camp at Auschwitz-Birkenau, and he also recently published the book Jasenovac, Auschwitz of the Balkans, so he's also very familiar with this geographical context, and his most recent book won the first prize at the Belgrade International Book Fair in November 2018. Professor Greif has won 5 of the highest official state decorations of the Republic of Serbia, and he's well known for his lecture technique, and he speaks on the Holocaust across the world in 3 languages, and I can prove that's correct: Hebrew, English, and fluent German. He especially loves to speak in front of young audience to share his knowledge on the Holocaust and its consequence to ensure that the Shoah will never be forgotten and stays a warning signal to all mankind. Today he speaks to us about Francesca, a courageous woman, and we're extremely honored to have you here.
Vielen Dank. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My radio experience saves me sometimes. Before dedicating some 20 minutes to Francesca Mann, since Joel mentioned his mother, I'm obliged to mention my mother, who also was a hero. She worked for many years at the Israeli police, starting at a mandate, British mandate in the land of Israel, but for 2 years she worked at the Mossad, the Israeli intelligence service. During the time of the searches for Joseph Mengele, she didn't tell me anything. Mossad agents do not speak, but I felt something. And as a good son, I preceded her and was in contact with some agents to give them some information I had. Unfortunately, this did not help. At the end, he died a natural death while swimming in a lake in Brazil, if I'm not wrong, in 1979. That was my personal obligation to my beloved mother, Beatrice, who passed away 5 years ago. Thank you, Joel. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you a story which streams between black and white inside the so-called gray zone, as Primo Levi has defined it in his famous book, The Drowned and the Saved. There are heroic deeds that sound like legends, like fairy tales, like a fantastic Hollywood script. The story of the famous Jewish dancer and artist, Francesca Mann, or Manuvna, or Lola Lipman, or Francesca Mannheimer. You see, she has many names. And her heroic act in Auschwitz-Birkenau is undoubtedly a heroic story, which sounds like a fictional or invented story, like a Hollywood legend, as I said. But it's true. It's a true story. And when you get to know the details, it is even more amazing and more magnificent than you can imagine. It is the story of a wonderful heroism of a young Jewish woman, a famous and appreciated dancer in Poland between the two world wars. Awarded prizes in international dance competitions, was defined as one of Poland's most respected classical ballet dancers. It's a story of heroism that deserves to be written in letters of gold in this story of Jewish heroism, female or male, during the Holocaust. I recently served as a scientific historical consultant for a new Israeli documentary film about Francesca's man heroism, directed by famous Israeli director Lina Chaplin, if you know the name, produced by Daniela Reis-Razon. And during my lecture, I will screen to you, I guess you see it for the first time, 3 excerpts, with the help of Milan, from the film, which is rather new, 2 years old. We also will see some pictures about Francesca, thanks to a presentation that I have especially prepared for this conference. Dear friends, before I get to the story of the act of Francesca, I would like to emphasize that although Francesca Mann's heroism in Auschwitz is no subject to dispute or challenge, many details of her life's origin are still shrouded in mist and may one day become clear. We still lack, for instance, important and authentic details about her parents' home. We do not know where she was born. Was it Brody? Was it Warsaw? Was it a different place? We do know nothing about her childhood. We know she had one brother, that's all. We know nothing about her husband. She married very young to Marek Rosenberg, who later was shot to death by Jewish underground in Warsaw Ghetto. We know very little about her rather mysterious, suspicious, unclear life in the Warsaw Ghetto. She is, until today, accused of being collaborator, agent of the Gestapo in extreme cases, or not. In brackets, I open brackets, the main accusation, like in Tel Aviv, the main accusations come from another very mysterious lady called Vera Gran, a famous Jewish singer, you know her, in the ghetto, who herself was accused of being collaborator. So you never know who is telling truth. Is it Vera Gran or is it Francesca or the historiography? We will never know. Was she a real collaborator or was she pure? That's a big mystery. There are details in the literature and testimonies that are still unclear or vague. Until today, I'm talking about October 20, what are we today? 22nd. But, ladies and gentlemen, the lack of these details, let them be what they are, in any case, or the multitude of conflicting versions about her that exist regarding this biographical data, do not cloud or diminish the miraculous story of a Jewish woman who, on the verge of death, in the most terrible place on earth, Auschwitz-Birkenau, managed to maintain her dignity as a woman and a Jewess, and did not allow an evil, sadistic SS man like Joseph Schillinger to harm her honor and humiliate her. I again open brackets. By forcing her to completely undress, you remember Primo Levi's The Drowned and the Saved, where he defines the compulsory nudity as one of the most horrible crimes of Nazi Germany. And I completely agree. Francesca Manovna Horowitz was unable to save her own life. She couldn't. In Auschwitz, no Jew was allowed to live. But Francesca Mann was certainly able to protect her honor with all her might and talents. The fact that the story managed to break out outside the sterile walls of the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration and extermination camp is the ultimate proof that the act of Francesca was so extreme, so rare, so fantastic, that no force could stop its spread inside the camp or outside it. The story of Francesca Mann also proves that even in a place like Auschwitz, it was impossible in moments of desperation to perform courageous and daring actions like the one Francesca did. Let me show you some pictures of her. I'm sure you are curious to see how this young, talented girl, actress, dancer looked like. Milan, please show us the presentation. Ich kann das nicht sehen. Hier?
Ja.
Moment. Here she is, beautiful, young, gifted. I forgot to mention that in the international concourse in Brussels in 1939, few months before the war broke out, she won for Poland the 4th prize in a very prestigious ballet concourse in Brussels, Belgium. So it was the highlight of her dancing career. Let's go on. With a little text. Her husband was Marek Rosenberg, but she didn't use his name. As I mentioned, he was assassinated in the Warsaw Ghetto. Go on. I inserted some biographical details. A moment. You can go on, show one by one. I would like also to add that she was studying dance in the very famous dance school of Irena Prusicka in Warsaw. This was the famous dancing school in all Poland and maybe in Europe. She's mentioned in the press articles in Poland. You can find her name very often. That's her, the left side hand. Okay, maybe we stop here. Good. So she was famous, she was beautiful, good-looking, young, and popular, but then the war broke out. The story of the act takes place inside the locker room or the undressing room at Auschwitz-Birkenau on October 23rd, 1943. The date is for sure. The story is not unambiguous and is based on the least 26 testimonies that I have collected from 1986 onwards and assembled over the years. Please pay attention. Various details in the testimonies contradict each other, and yet, after examining the multitude of details that have accumulated with a scrutinized eye and historical care, we come to the conclusion that this is an event that actually happened and not an imaginary legend. This is very important to emphasize. In light of the above, it seems to me that the story of the act can be outlined in its stages. Just a second. In 1939, sorry for the delay, Francesca Mann was one of the most promising dancers in her day, as she won the fourth prize and other prizes in Poland. After the occupation of Warsaw, she was transferred to Hotel Polski in Luga Street in Warsaw, on the Aryan side of Warsaw, where Jews of status were housed, most of them having purchased citizenship of foreign countries, mostly from South America. Residents at the Hotel Polski, this is a very famous affair. I'm not going into this now. We can have 3 lectures about it. Anyway, residents at the Hotel Polski believed that they would be saved because of their foreign passports, because of the documentation they bought for a lot of money. But the Germans had different plans. Later, they were sent to Bergen-Belsen in Germany, and from there they were transported directly to the infamous ramp of Auschwitz-Birkenau. 1,700 Polish Jews arrived in passenger trains at the death camp at Auschwitz-Birkenau, in this transport in which Francesca was. Although they had been told that they were being taken to a transfer camp near Dresden, from where they would continue on to Switzerland to be exchanged for German prisoners of war, they were transferred to Auschwitz. One of the passengers of the transport was Francesca. She had probably obtained her foreign passport from the Hotel Polski on the Aryan side. In July 1940, a few months before she was transferred to Auschwitz, the Germans came to the hotel and arrested 600 Jews to be transferred to Auschwitz, and she was among them. Let us see more photos from Francesca, and then I will show you some excerpts from the film. We see the Warsaw Ghetto, of course. This is the Hotel Polski. Some reminiscences from that time. And we come to the ramp of Auschwitz-Birkenau. Can we see the first excerpt, please, from the film directed by Lina Chaplin, Francesca?
Did you ever hear the name Francesca Meier? Well, Francesca was quite a well-known dancer. What happened is that as she shot him dead, because that son of a bitch.
Okay. We will have 2 more excerpts, if you allow. The transport landed on the ramp, the camp platform, and after the passengers got off the cars, they were led without delay into the cloakroom and dressing room. In order to calm them down, they were told that they would undergo disinfection before continuing on their way to Switzerland. Lie upon lie. At this point, the Jews in this transport probably already suspected that they had been deceived and misled, but the meticulous and effective trap that the Germans had laid for them left them with no means of escape whatsoever. In the undressing room, the deception was discovered in its entirety. According to the procedure in that hellish place, the passengers of the transport were required to completely remove their clothes. Completely. The heroine of our story probably instinctively understood that these were the last minutes of her life. Recognizing from stories that were prevalent in the Warsaw Ghetto what the place called Auschwitz meant to the Jews who came there. Francesca Mann decided in seconds that her honor as a woman and a Jewess would not be violated by anyone. Therefore, she began to resort to tactics of delay in the process of its spread, both as a form of defiance and out of some faint hope that perhaps the nightmare that was about to occur was nothing more than a daydream, and the worst of it would not happen. The Sonderkommando members who were present at the scene, like always, and whose testimony about the incident is more credible and acceptable to me than any other testimony we have about the event, urged Francesca, the woman standing before them, to hurry up and take off all her clothes, knowing the nervousness and impatience of the SS men stationed there, and for whom industrial silence and the noisy pace of murder were important and essential in the death factory. The Sonderkommando members pleads were not heeded. The woman insisted on staying in her underwear. The Sonderkommando members were desperate and had no choice but to call, according to existing procedures, the SS man on duty that day, the evil Josef Schillinger. Schillinger, a confirmed sadist, entered the dressing room in a rage, drew his gun, and demanded of the woman in a loud and violent voice, "Ausziehen! Undress immediately!" The woman nodded her head in refusal. The sullen and angry Schillinger repeated his demand, this time more firmly. The answer was again negative. During the brief exchange, Francesca Mann noticed the drawn pistol in front of her and the dancer with quick movements like her and agility, and while deceiving the SS man, she managed quickly to take the pistol from his drawn hand in front of her, to press the trigger and fire several bullets. Schillinger was hit by the shots and fell bleeding to the dressing room floor. He was rushed by his fellow SS men on a stretcher to the SS hospital, where he died after a few hours of his wounds. It was several hours later. SS reinforcements were called to the undressing room and quickly shot Francesca Mann to death. Her body was immediately thrown into the fire pit. Schillinger's assistant, Wilhelm Emmerich, was also wounded by her shots, but survived. The heroic act of the brave Jewish woman became known like lightning throughout the camp. The prisoners' joy knew no bounds. The dog Schillinger is dead. So the prisoners cheered. Francesca Mann died as a heroine. She could not save her young life, but she managed to preserve her personal dignity as a woman, as a Jewess, as an artist, for the sake of history and for future generations. It is important to talk in this context about the question of hero and anti-hero, but we will do it after the second excerpt. Please, Milan.
Dwa i pół metra wysokości. Żydowscy murarze nadzorowani przez hitlerowskich żołnierzy kładą cegłę za cegłą. Ci, którzy nie pracują zbyt szybko, są bici przez nadzorców. Przypomina mi to biblijny opis naszej niewoli w Egipcie. Ale gdzie jest Mojżesz, który wyzwoliłby nas z nowej opresji?
Mury, które zostały już wzniesione na Rymarskiej, podwyższono. Sprawiają one wrażenie prawdziwych murów więziennych. Chcą nas zamurować żywcem. Tak uważają ludzie.
Już w maju 1941 roku zbierano z ulic ciała. Chowano ponad 100 osób każdej nocy.
Właśnie dziś, gdy szłam ulicą, co dzień za dnią, już na pamięć znam tę drogę i nagle właśnie...
We don't have enough time. Vera Gahn is called Edith Piaf of Poland. There is a similarity in the voices. So let's talk in 5 minutes about hero and anti-hero. When one looks at the existing literature on Francesca Mann and delve into the documentary sources that mention her, one gets a two-dimensional picture of a negative and research figure, and on the other hand, a heroic, daring figure. During a stay in the Warsaw Ghetto, Francesca is portrayed rather in negative light. She's, for instance, accused in being connected to the gang of smugglers called the 13th Ścinaska, stationed in Leszno Street number 13. Her husband was no doubt a Gestapo agent, so she is sometimes portrayed in very negative light. As collaborator or semi-collaborator, working for the Gestapo, singing for Gestapo agents, etc. Like Vera Gahn and other Jewish artists who lived in the Warsaw Ghetto. But even this fact or facts cannot diminish her heroism and fortitude. Francesca's husband is not the subject of our lecture, so there is no point in talking about him. But talking about her, the story which sounds so fascinating, like a Hollywood script, is true. And its very essence is unbelievable. And in doing what she does, she no doubt entered the pantheon of Jewish women like Miriam, Yael, the daughters of Break, Tzlofchad, Deborah, the famous prophet, and other bold Jewish women who have glorified Jewish women throughout the history and the Jewish people throughout generations. Let us now see the third and last excerpt from the film.
Mann i jej koleżanki, tancerki, która związała się z gestapowcem. A potem zaczęli deklinować przez przypadki Mann, Gran i odwrotnie, jak lustrzane odbicie. Ta artystka współpracowała, futra nosiła. Nie kryła. Ona, Franka, Wiera, to ona.
Stwierdzono, bo wiele grzechów Manówny przepisano wierze Gran. Man, Gran i to się myliło. Wiera Gran była bardziej znana, więc łatwiej było dla przeciętnego człowieka. Manówną znali wielbiciele baletu, ludzie interesujący się kulturą. Ludzie twierdzili, że widzieli w jednej rykszy Manówną i Wierę Gran, co podobno nie jest prawdą, dlatego że one nie były w przyjaźni.
A po drugie ona się zachowywała tak, że
By the way, interesting, this old man is like a little child. He still collects newspaper from the 20s and 30s, like we collect several things, and is one of the biggest experts still living in Warsaw about Francesca and Vera Gran and other Jewish artists. He is the star of the film. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, thank you to both of you for presenting these biographies and also film clips. Now we have another 30 minutes, half an hour for questions. Alessandro.
A question, but considerations about the movie Zeugin oder Hölle, Gorke, trave. I want to remember about the producer of the movie that is a very important figure, Arthur Brauner. It was a survivor of the Holocaust and the director of CCC, this very important producer society in Germany. And he produced almost 20-30 Holocaust movie, very, very great of successful. For example, also the Italian The Garden of Finzi Contini was produced by him. And some histories are personally. Also another movie was based on the survivor of her wife during the Holocaust. About Francesca Mann, there is previous a distribution of the documentary, or for now not. What is the situation with this documentary movie? It is.
I'm not aware about the distribution system, but I think you can find it on YouTube already.
I see Vimeo now.
Write to me, I will send you a copy.
Okay. Any consideration? The revolt of Francesca incredibly put to the Jews of Rome more minutes of life, because they arrived in Auschwitz the same day of the transport from Rome, and thanks to the revolt of Francesca, when the selected Jews from Rome to the gas chambers were put into the gas chambers, the crematorium 2 and 3 were closed, caused the revolt of Francesca. The crematorium 4 was not in use because it was often broken, and all the Jews of Rome put to the gas chamber were go to the crematorium 5, more with Far Street, and they had, thanks to this revolt, more minutes of life before their death. Is a terrible consideration. Marcello Pezzetti sometimes tell to the Jews, the Jewish child survived in the roundup of Rome. If you were here, you had some minutes of life because all of these situations. And I want to remember about that.
Marija, did you also want to comment on?
Yes, I would like to point film from 48, Morituri, the Arthur Bronner. Yes, you thought about that. Yes, yes. It was one of the first films of Holocaust, but in Western Germany, it's the Witness Out of Hell is one of the first. So one of the 5 first.
I think Lily first, and then Joel.
One very important film, which was I think maybe the first, that was a co-production, Croatian and German, is The Seventh Circle. I don't know if you know it, but also in the center there is a female figure that Croatian family it's the 9th circle, sorry, yeah. And I think it's worth to mention it. And also in the center is a female figure. Her name is Ruth, very familiar from Ruth from the Bible. And a Croatian family that tries to save her, but at the end she refuses. She goes like Ruth in the Bible back to her nation, and voluntarily she enters the concentration camp. So I think it's a film that we should memorize and mention.
Yes, and I agree that in first decades of Holocaust representation on film, women were portrayed as ideal victims also, but for Frida Filipović, it is one step beyond, because she insists on that gray zone, we heard about it, and also about resistance. Her other film script is Search for Vanda Kos, which is also a very important fiction film about resistance and how to say, it's a spectre of women active roles within a period of Second World War.
This film was produced in 46, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, 48.
No, it's not. It's not in the 60s.
No.
The one that I mentioned, it's
yes.
definitely not the 60s, the 50s, early 50s. And the heroine, of course, is not a victim at all. She chooses to live and to end her life as she understands that it's better. The 9th circle, Hamagala Chi.
And then the next in row is...
I remember a movie, The 9th Circle, from Stiglitz.
Next in row, Joel. Sorry, I have a list of Joel first, and then Yvonne, and then I put you on the list, okay?
Okay, I do.
Thank you, Gideon, for this description of Francesca. And Francesca was not the only beautiful woman who became a Gestapo informer. There was like Geldschlag, whom you know, I'm sure you know, she was German in Berlin. And I would like to suggest that even though she performed a very heroic act on when she knew that she's going to be killed, The real women, young women who should be considered as heroes are the women who could save them their own lives because they were beautiful, they spoke the language, they were Aryan and so on. And nevertheless, unlike Francesca and Stella Goldschlag, they chose to go to the Jewish underground. And they fought in the Jewish underground for months and years. Eventually, many of them were captured and killed in this way or another. So these are the women that one should commemorate in movies. And less important is the story of this that you just described. So I believe. Another question is that we should not perhaps ask why did she, I mean, this was a single case, and the question should be why hundreds and thousands of people who came to the dressing room in the 5 crematoria and the two white and red barracks, why did they not perform similar acts of revolt? That's the question that we should ask.
I'm afraid this question we will leave it open. I just want to add something I didn't have enough time to mention. I think in the case of artists, singers, dancers, we have to be very cautious blaming them with the accusations of collaboration, because the nature of an artist is standing on stage, receiving the lights, the applause. They live from it, that's their life. And the border between collaboration and popularity and applause sometimes is very thin, so I think we have to be cautious. That's a remark I would like to mention. Thank you.
Just one more comment, if I may. You mentioned 26 testimonies. I believe that
I mentioned what?
26 testimonies about the act of Francesca Mann. I believe only one, that of Philip Müller.
Oh no! First of all,
was first-hand
members I have interviewed who were there.
So how many more were first-hand testimonies?
Half of them. Yes. And
From the
who were the
Sonderkommando?
26? First of all, the Sonderkommando members who were there. Then Auschwitz prisoners who were at the camp at that time and heard about it few hours later.
Yeah, but
and
that's
some
secondary.
SS like Jerzy Gabot and others who report about this. So we have 3 main sources for this case.
Okay.
Maybe more. I discovered 26.
But also modest and humbled. And I think that there is nothing easier than sit in this beautiful room, comfortable place, and wearing the glasses of a judge. So I completely agree that we should be cautious, but also very, very modest and humbled and know our place.
Thank you. I agree. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting. And I just want to have a few comments and a question to Gideon. First of all, you can see the stories, cross-references with other movies, like The Night Porter, in your case, that she's dancing in front of the Nazis and so on, but she doesn't do it willingly. And then you can see the contra, or not the contra, the other side of the story in Pontecorvo's movie in 56, Capo, when she's it's an Italian movie, when she is also collaborating. I will tomorrow show a few clips from Pontecorvo's movie, and she's doing it willingly just to get food. And but she's raped over and over again, and she's at the end there is a redemption in both stories. So you can find
it's also Yugoslav co-production.
Yes, exactly. So you can see cross references. I mean, between cultures, and between.
Yes, I have examples of German theorists, especially examining the motive of righteous suicide of the victims of sexual violence, or in preventing sexual violence. And that's why I think that Frida Filipović wrote her novel in New Millennium, because speaking of someone who lived through violence and opposed that concept of righteous suicide, actually is a contradictory thesis, and belongs to New Millennium, when we know everything that you mentioned, that we cannot be morally superior to people who lived through the vicious period of humankind.
Yeah, and that's why the movies are important in order to evoke the discussion about these women, and to give the whole perspective instead of one as a testimony, but to take this testimony and to make it a whole scene in order people will understand literally what is going on. That's about your now, Gideon, to you. As you said, she was blamed as collaborators, and Joel said, do you think that what she had done in Auschwitz, it was kind of retribution, or kind of forgiveness, act of forgiveness to the people that she betrayed, and or to clear herself, to make sure that she will be remembered as a hero or non-collaborator?
I don't think so, because she didn't have enough time. She didn't have enough time to think thoroughly about such a possibility. It was so quick, you know, from the ramp to the undressing hall. There was no time for thinking. Intentionally, the system was so quick not to let the victims even think where they are, what to do. So I don't think so. I think it was an instinct.
She wasn't a warrior. She never held a gun. What she done, it was.
But this makes the story so fantastic,
yeah, I mean,
without any experience. But you know, it's the same with Herschel Grinspan, who came to the French German Nazi embassy in Paris. He never had a gun in his hand, and he was 17 years. He didn't make a Tyrannout in Bad Arba, and he never used a gun, and he shot from Rat and killed him. So not always you have to have some military experience. I think it was spontaneous. She didn't have time to elaborate where I am, what is going to happen to me. I don't think so, no.
Thank you both for the fascinating presentations. I have some questions from each of you. For Marija, you mentioned her early background, and I was wondering, because I know a lot of the women that were in Žena danas were also part of the communist movement, and obviously later she joined the partisans. Did Frida Filipović also have this type of background? That is the first question. And the second question is, it's been a lot of years between the movie and the book, and is there any kind of reason for that? For Gideon, my question would be, when you have such edge cases, especially when Jewish people or other prosecuted groups are concerned, as a scholar of the Holocaust, do you use any certain given criteria when you want to examine if somebody was a collaborator, or how, or does this have to be approached case by case basis when you have a lot of contradictory testimonies? Thank you.
Thank you. Frida Filipović wasn't involved directly in partisan movement. She was, in her own words, bourgeois, but she politically stand with the Communist Party, and also she was communist feminist in early days. But after she wrote pieces for Politica magazine, and then after her first book, she received severe critics from editorial of Žena danas, and then she was in next stories, in next books, she was more politically involved, but also she discussed political activists in her work, in the divergences, and in character of Hannah Abinon, and I think that it is some kind of mashup of Ella Almuni Fleischmann, but also Hannah Levy Haas, and she provided the comments, very vivid comments on that day politics. So she was actually very aware, and but not active in sense of fighting on terrain. Also, maybe biographical note: her brother was the personal dentist of Josip Broz Tito. She was involved into Communist Party and I would say in broader sense. And the second question, yes, during that period she was active in translations, and she translated work of Sartre, which deeply influenced her views into Jewishness as otherness. Also, she was also atheist, politically atheist, and maybe, which was important, she was feminist, and she inscribed all that feminist ideas into the novel, and where on the places where it wasn't clearly enough, she inscribed more in 2001. So she was fighting for being understood properly in political sense.
Regarding your question, I think each case has to be judged, but I think if we take Stella Kübler-Goldschlag, who betrayed 1,000 Jews hiding in Berlin, and because of her denunciation they lost their life in Auschwitz, it's a clear case of collaboration. Or when a Jew stood near a bunker in Warsaw and pointed to the Germans, here 80 Jews are hiding, and they were taken out and sent to Majdanek or Auschwitz. This is collaboration. Some cases are inside the gray zone, and we will never know how to refer to them. It has really to be judged separately, each case for itself.
Well,
or the case of Vital Hasson in Thessaloniki. He was no doubt a big collaborator.
Okay, just a comment to Gideon. Although Francesca's story was vague or legend, we really don't know. It became a symbol, and the story was passed on to the next generation, and we know of artists that depicted Francesca in several artwork, and I think it's worth to mention it and to show it.
You are the expert.
I think you have them.
Good, thank you. I will.
Last comment for you is that Lina Chaplin, which is almost 90 years old, if you will want to write about the movie, you should mention her, that she is always going to the extreme stories. She had another movie called Muki Buara. It's about a survival family, and they have a son born in Israel, and the relationship between the mother and son became to be extreme. while they're all being dominated by a former couple in their house. So you can see that Chaplin going to a very, very dark places in order to illuminate them for the Israeli and I'm not sure the world sees it, but especially to the Israeli audience, and people banded Muki Buara because of that.
Thank you.
So I don't see voice, yeah?
Yeah, just a comment. I would like to say that it's very hard to find logic in such illogical words as ghettos and Auschwitz, words which produced death. This is completely abnormal words. So our logic is not adapted for those words, and we can't understand what was really the situation. We can try to study, but to judge, it's just not possible.
Any more questions? Yeah.
Well, thank you both for your presentations, which were quite interesting. I have two questions for Gideon, because we talked about Francesca Mann in university and about the different perspectives we have on her because of different testimonies. And we wondered if there's a difference in who wrote the testimony, like if there's any difference in the female and male perception of her. So this would be my first question. And my second one is, I just read a book from Matteo Maximoff, who was persecuted as a so-called gypsy. And he also had a part in his book where he was like telling a story which was quite similar to the one of Francesca Mann. And I wanted to ask if you maybe have heard about him or the story that he has told.
Well, taking into consideration the several accusations, there is no difference. One of the sharpest criticizer of both Vera Gran and Francesca was, what's the name of him? I forgot. No, היסטוריון ישראלי פולני, שכחתי את שמו. I have a black... No. He emigrated to Israel in the 60s. He was very influential in Poland. I forgot the name in this moment. He was very, very, very much critical against both women. So I don't see, regarding your question, a big difference between Tushinska and Gran and all this clique against... no, really no. I remember the name, I'll tell you. What was the other question?
About Matteo Maximoff.
No, I never heard about this.
Okay.
Can you please send me the link?
Yes, I can.
Thank you very much.
I can write you down the name of the book.
You always learn something new.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we reached the end of this panel. According to the program, we have a break now from 1:30 to 3 to 15. I don't know, Dragana, any more announcements or? No. Okay, thank you everyone for the discussion.
Drink and toilet.
So this is not something bigger reads, media reads, I don't know how you performs. It's a question for myself, but about, I read it like that so many times, in so many places. I think it's for granted, but when you ask it, now it's okay. What does it mean? Except making it seem. I maybe she's even person is for example, yeah. I don't, yeah, but this is a challenge for myself to go. But I guess that this is like, part of the you see all of or things like that, the no plan to be so trying to be speaker and tracker, is kind of what's the name and it didn't come out nowhere. In different contests. So I asked the publish again, she was person for India
One day. Yeah.
I can't tell you when.
You know, it's possible to get AI to translate, and you can get subtitles, and then have someone read them over. Yeah,
I suggest.
that's what we do. I'll look for it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Translators, but it's good for us. She wants to stay.
I have to go now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. things that I made, they remind me of the wall, and like, this is like my husband's favorite, or my daughter's favorite, my son's favorite, and then there's a lot of interesting stuff that I can get into. It was a lot, like, like 35%. It's not related to their
Io tutti i versioni scritto nel tagliere di ragazzi in quanto c'era
I mean, for the people after, like, I personally just so they became friends with that freedom as well. And I knew it was fiction. And then later, I fell into this, oh, so this famous woman, that's her daughter. And yeah, they were not a lot.
Not much.
She said, really, like, she said it was lying there in the science for 2 weeks. You know, I hope that it will inspire specific stories. There are a lot of so yeah. No, like this was something that I did. It's like outside associate. But that would increase many times. I have maybe And then they were like, wait, what are you doing? Right? But
No, I have to consult them.
So, certain artists where they feel it should be there. But yeah, it's hard, and then obviously trying to get was brought. Good idea.
ねえねえ